Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting Friday Ramblings. We're going to continue our spooky countdown because, hey, we just started the last episode. So for our second week in a row, we're going to tie in not just to my Tuesday night stream, which you can also watch right here at Roulette Productions on YouTube, but upcoming theatrical releases. That's right. We're going to break down everything you need to know about the history of the Addams family. Da-da-da-dun. 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 Okay, got that out of my system. Let's get going with the facts. Alright, now the Addams family was created by American cartoonist Charles Addams. Hence the term the Addams family, used his own surname, make it good. And in all forms and formats, the Addams family has included Gomez and Morticia Addams, the children Wednesday Pugsley, Uncle Fester and Grandmama, the Butler Lurch, the disembodied hand thing, and Gomez's cousin Ed. The 9 core characters of the Addams family that have been in every version. Now, the whole idea of the Addams family originally, when they were created way back in let's see, come on. In the 30s, or late 30s, 40s, we'll call it 40s. Because we know Charles Addams started as a cartoonist at the New Yorker in the 30s, but I do believe it was not until the 40s that he actually began doing the Addams Family cartoons specifically. And the idea is that they were a satirical inversion of the 40s ideal American family. In that, like a lot of families' ideals, they were independently wealthy. They were aristocratic in that they could trace their family tree back multiple generations, and those generations were always well-marked members of society. That they are an old money family, as the term goes. However, their individual values is where the satire comes in, because they do everything just a little unusual, a little kooky, a little spooky, whereas most families would live in a brightly painted, sunny house. The Addams live in an old, decrepit, dark-colored manor, where most people's idea of a family game would be, little Scrabble or nice friendly card game. The Addams would summon the dead as a family activity. And that is what ultimately helped make the entire process take off, because at their core, the Addams in all versions are a loving family that is loyal and supportive to each other, but they just have a lot of quirks to their individual personalities. So there's just enough of them that's relatable for the audience to make it appealing, but their behavior is so comedically over the top and unexpected that that's why they're funny. And that's something a lot of people have had problems finding that balance. Now, after the single panel cartoons started taking off, we got a live action television series in 1964, which is where the Addams Family firmly became entrenched in pop culture. Um, do 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 do. Pulling up my references here, folks. Okay, the 1964 TV series, which ran on ABC, may have only aired 2 seasons for a total of 64 episodes, but it remained in syndication for decades, and therefore, even though there are not a lot of episodes necessarily to the show, it is iconic. Same thing happened to series like Gilligan's Island, which only ran for like 3 seasons, I believe, but, you know, less than 100 episodes. So the good news is, if you do want to sit there and go to your old school black and white Addams Family, you can get a DVD box set for a relatively low price because it's not as much content as some series. And the rights are currently owned by MGM Television. Let me see. If there's anything. But the basic idea of it is that, much like the cartoons, these are people that they are good family members. They're very loyal to each other. And they are definitely aware of American society. However, they just have their own viewpoints of what is considered good, innocent, family-friendly fun. This is where the iconic theme song that I've been coming earlier came in. It was written and arranged by longtime Hollywood composer Vic Mizzy. It is dominated by a harpsichord and finger snaps, and also featured Ted Cassidy, who played the butler Lurch, punctuating the lyrics with the words neat, sweet, and petite. I think, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, Lurch was played by Ted Cassidy, as well as doing the theme. Now, because the 64 series, while not having a ton of episodes, was quite popular and had its audience, it later spun off a 1973 animated television series. Now, this is important to note because the current movie is animated as well. This is a tradition for the Addams Family that, you know, it's something they do. They animate, which, frankly, I think is a great adaptation of the fact that the family is originally from one-panel cartoons, or not cartoons, but comic strips. And so going from a comic strip, which is of course a drawn medium, to cartoons, which is a drawn medium, is a good adaptation, even though they did go to live action first. Now, before the series itself was launched, they kind of planted the idea for the series through Hanna-Barbera's other major series, the new Scooby-Doo movies, which was running in 1972, the year before. And since fans loved the episode, they went ahead with the cartoon series, which is good to note. Now, the cartoon series only ran one season and only had 16 episodes. You would think this means that the series was a bomb, but truth is it really wasn't. Fact of the matter is, back then a lot of those cartoons didn't last that long. You know? It had an audience, and it has stayed in syndication throughout the decades, much like the original live-action television series, which means that we can't really claim the cartoon series, was a failure. Now, you can get the Addams Family 1973 cartoon series on DVD as well, as part of Warner Brothers Hanna-Barbera Classics collection. So, if you can't currently find it on a particular streaming option, or a given TV channel you have with your cable satellite package, by all means, considering dropping a little money on it. As I said, it's only 16 episodes. You can marathon it in a weekend. Hell, you can marathon it in a day if you really didn't have many other plans. And it is good. It is quirky. But it's definitely a cartoon series of the 70s, so it is going to look a little dated. Let's go ahead and lay that out. Now, we're going to flash forward a few more years to a television reunion movie based off the original TV show, which was called Halloween with the New Addams Family. And all of the original cast came back except for Blossom Rock, who played Grandmama, as she was very ill at the time and was replaced by Jan Rose. Now, they did modify the theme song, in which they stripped the lyrics, but they kept the harpsichord and finger snaps to it, so there's that. The basic plot of this movie, which I'll freely admit I have never seen, but I'll probably track down one day to add it to my Addams Family fandom viewing pleasures, is that Gomez and Morticia have had two more children, Wednesday Jr. and Pugsley Jr., who coincidentally look a lot like their older siblings. Now, Gomez himself has to go out of town and leaves his brother Pancho in charge. In which, as is typical sitcom fashion, shenanigans happen. The older children return home as well. So you have a good mix of continuity there, as we have seen the original children grow up, but we still have child characters. Some crooks break in. Much fun and laughter is had. Now, the characters of Wednesday Jr. and Pugsley Jr. have not really reappeared in any other continuity. So, sad things have happened, but these things happen when you are dealing with reunion movies and the acknowledgement of fictional characters growing up. Much like superhero comics, when it comes to sitcoms, people don't necessarily want to see their characters grow up, especially with something like a reunion movie, which is meant to grab some nostalgia. So, after this, the Addams Family kind of went a little low-key. As I said, the original live-action sitcom as well as the animated series stayed on syndication, but the fandom kind of got quieted down. Addams Family was a thing everybody heard of, but it wasn't at the forefront. This all changed in 1991 when our buddy Barry Sonnenfeld, who has gone on to create a lot of kooky, slightly dysfunctional type comedic movies, such as the Men in Black trilogy, which I guess now it's a quadrilogy, but I'd have to double check. I don't know if he directed Men in Black International. So, that's something for another discussion. Because we already discussed the Addams Family, and he did create the Addams Family film, which was released in 1991. Now, they do vary a few things up, mostly because the nature of the actors they had involved. We go from John Astin as Gomez Addams in the sitcom to Raul Julia, who plays Gomez more suave, with a bit of that subtle biting humor. John Astin, which makes sense for a 70s sitcom, was a lot more expressive with his facial and body language than Raul Julia, who played Gomez. As I said, a lot more subtle with his, dry wit delivery. Raul Julia Gomez would be more apt to say something really out there and unexpected with a bit of a spooky, kooky theme to it, but deliver it in the same manner that most folks would tell you whether or not it's raining outside. But it worked, especially because he was playing off Angelica Houston as Morticia Addams, who brought a lot of grace to the role of Morticia. Now again, I'm not dissing the original TV series and saying Morticia Addams was not graceful in her own way, but Angelica Houston took it up another notch. And this version of the Gomez-Morticia relationship comes off very much where Morticia, in a very subtle way, is kind of the head of the household. She is definitely has a more dominant air about her within the relationship with Gomez, and seems to spend more time interacting with the children than Gomez. Again, not that Gomez is a bad father, it's just the nature of the two characters. You also have the iconic Christopher Lloyd taking up the reins as Uncle Fester. He would do this for both the Addams Family movie in 1991 and the sequel Addams Family Value, which was in 1993. As for the basic plots of the movies, in the first one, Uncle Fester has been gone for quite a good many years and seemingly returns to the family with a spot of amnesia. Or is he an impersonator trying to steal that old money family fortune? You've got to watch the movie to find out. Now, this was my first exposure to the Addams Family personally. I had heard of it, but I had never really sat down and watched the TV show. This is where I started into the Addams Family fandom, and the movie's brilliant. Flat out. It is a very funny movie. Some of the best black comedy I've ever seen. Because, again, a lot of the humor lies in the fact that the Addams family, they live their life deeply in the supernatural. They hold seances as family activities. They see nothing wrong with taking those who go against the family and try to hurt the family and potentially bury them alive. But it's all done with a smile and a bit of comedic flair. So, for those people that have more modern sensibilities when it comes to humor, are a little worried about the idea of watching the original sitcom due to its age, well, I'm going to go ahead and encourage you to start with this movie, as well as its sequel, Addams Family Value. Most times, if you find it on DVD slash Blu-ray slash 4K disc, ultra high def, it's probably a double pack. That's how I own it personally. So, go for it if you can find that double pack. Addams Family Values, once again, focuses on Fester, which makes a lot of sense because, again, Christopher Lloyd is an epic actor, especially when it comes to comedy. And the new character of Baby Pubert, which in a lovely bit of continuity was foreshadowed in the closing minutes of the original Addams Family film in 1991, and Addams Family Values opens up with Baby Pubert's birth. Uncle Fester falls in love, but he falls in love with a Jezebel. If you don't know what Jezebel is, go ahead and Google it and come back. Again, a lot of shenanigans come up. Like the first movie, the core message, when it's all said and done, when you get through all the supernatural comedy flair, is that if you keep your original loyalties and your deepest loyalties to your family, and you love your family, they will never fail you, they will never disappoint you, and they will never let you end up in trouble. Family first, folks. That is what the Addams teach us. Now, in between these two films, we did get a 1992 animated series. That's right. That first Addams Family movie in 1991 did so brilliant, they rushed a sequel or a spin-off cartoon. It ran for, let's see, 2 seasons, and which you're going to expect a decent episode count, but I'm sorry, it's only 21 episodes. It was a Saturday morning cartoon, and Saturday morning cartoons generally have a low episode count per season. This one, the humor does resemble the 1991 film a lot, although more focus is put on Pugsley and Wednesday as characters, and all these shenanigans they get up as precocious little children. Again, it's a good TV series. Don't know if it's had any kind of... Does not look like it's had a DVD release yet. But who knows? Maybe with the release of this upcoming movie, somebody will sit there and put this out on DVD as well. We can hope because, hey, got to keep filling out that collection, right? Okay, so that leads us to 1998, where we got Addams Family Reunion, which was released direct to video by Warner Brothers. Now, it has no relation to the Paramount movies, and is in fact essentially a series premiere for the follow-up second live-action television series, The New Addams Family. There are some some actor switches between Addams Family Reunion and the follow-up TV series. Specifically, Addams Family Reunion had Gomez played by Tim Curry, who followed the same style of Raul Julia, whereas in the New Addams Family sitcom, Glenn Taranto played Gomez Addams more like John Astin from the original black and white sitcom, which, you know, is a thing. Nothing wrong with it, but it kind of makes a bit of a disconnect between them. I'm not a real big fan of the Addams Family Reunion movie just because it did serve as a reboot to the continuity set up by the movies, and since I love the first 2 movies, I was really hoping that they would continue the continuity either through more theatrical movies or a TV series, even if you did have to change the actors. Raul Julia himself died shortly after Addams Family Value. So obviously they were going to have to recast Gomez, and I'm sure if they had gone to a full TV series, Angelica Houston probably would not have signed on, as she is a pretty big A-list actress in her own right and was doing a lot of work in the 90s. So, but see, that's just not it. You can still switch the actors, especially if you go down to TV series, and keep the continuity. So, I don't know. As I said, maybe it's just me because I wanted more from these characters. Oh, and of course, Christopher Lloyd. I really doubt Christopher Lloyd was going to want to do a TV series in the 90s, but I don't know. Maybe he would have. I'd have to see if I can ever bump into him someday and ask him. But either way, it's what it was. The Addams Family reunion ushered in yet another reboot of the Addams Family stories. And new Addams Family sitcom itself ran for 65 episodes, which means it's one more than the original live-action TV series. But again, it's pretty much only in and of itself. I believe they broke it up over... Yeah, see, that they consider one season because... I don't know why. That seems like a high episode count for a single season. You know, it was airing on Fox Family, which is now, if you look at your current cable guides, I believe the network is now known as, it's now known as Freeform. Yeah, this is that network went through a lot of changes over time. But yeah, the network is currently known as Freeform. At the time that the new Addams Family was running, it was Fox Family. So it's kind of one of those non-major network channels. I guess they figured 65 episodes was a season. In the end, it doesn't really matter because it was 65 episodes no matter how they split it up. It just seems a little kooky to me. Hey, there you go. Keywords from the original theme songs. Now, they did bring back John Astin, who, as I said, played Gomez Addams in the original series as a new character, Grandpapa Addams, which, I'll be honest, was a good Easter egg fan service moment. You know? Helped kind of connect the two series together. As I said, the series really only ran a year. After that, we haven't had anything from the Addams Family until this year. That is a 20-year gap between projects. Now, of course, that is official projects. There was, for a brief period of time, a kind of underground YouTube series done as a fan thing called about a grown-up adult Wednesday Addams that, unfortunately, because it was a fan thing and copyright permission was not gotten from I believe it was still Paramount, might have been Warner Brothers at the time, because I know Warner Brothers did the TV series. But either way, because they did not get permission from copyright, the series was eventually pulled from YouTube. It may exist somewhere in the dregs of the internet. I would have to go digging for it. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm not going to provide links to it because if it is out there, again, it is not official material, even though it was quite good for what the pitch was. Like, as far as fan projects go, it was done quite well. And over the years, of course, there have been parodies. There have been various video games released in both the 80s and the 90s. As I said before, I recently played the 8-bit NES game based off the 1991 movie. So, what does all this mean? Especially for our spooky-minded marathon here. Well, while they were not the only family to have that basic concept of spooky, kooky, but within the family a very strong, loving dynamic, they're probably the ones that have had the most resurgences over the years in the fan community. You know, the Munsters is a classic example, and they did have a few post TV series television movies. They've attempted to reboot into a new live action TV series. They've never quite taken off, but we've not had full, they never got a full big Hollywood blockbuster treatment like Barry Sonnenfeld did with them with the Addams Family in 1991. You didn't have a lot of Munsters video games, if any. So, as far as pop culture permeance, the Addams Family is there. And in a lot of ways, because of that, it has influenced stuff that has come later. The basic idea of, hey, on the surface they're really creepy and you'd think they would do horrible things to your, long-term soul and short-term body. But it turns out they're actually the nicest people in the neighborhood. That concept's been revisited a few times. But nobody's really done it as good as the Addams Family. They're the measuring stick. I know some people prefer the Munsters when it comes to the original TV series, and I have nothing against the Munsters. I gravitate more towards the Addams Family just because the Munsters plays a little tighter with the supernatural feel, as you've got the father's a Frankenstein, the mother's a vampire, the kid's a werewolf. They kind of incorporate all the classic Universal monsters into the show. They have the daughter who's the normal human. But that's just it. To me, the Munsters is a little more all over the place. With the Addams Family, it felt like the humor they were going for was a little more tight focused. And maybe that's why they've had more chances and more resurgences. Now, if this new movie does great, I'm sure they'll do a sequel, maybe two. Especially in the animated field in Hollywood, they love cranking out sequels. Probably going to be direct to video, especially once you get to third movie, if it goes that far. But there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself. Personally, I'd like to see some more video games. There's a lot of depth and material you can do with the basic Addams Family setup that could cover a variety of video game genres. I mean, could you imagine being some distant cousin, getting to explore the full mansion in a, comedic satire of your jump-scary Resident Evil type games? Or be kind of like the old school platformers. Do something like Mario Brothers 2, where, you can play as different members of the family and they all have slightly different tweaked abilities. So each time you change characters, the game has a different feel to it. It could be fun. So, here's hoping that the Addams Family concept continues to flourish, continues to resurgence, because, just like the Addams themselves claim about their clan, hey, you can knock us down, but we'll always dig ourselves out of the dirt one more time. Come back next Friday. We're going to talk about some other supernatural stuff. I know I was kind of all the way out there. There's a lot of big info dump in here, but as I said, this is something that does not die. I think for my next video, I'm going to go a little more focused, something that's got less content to it and has covered less decades. But I don't know. I want to flip a coin when I record that episode. There's so much stuff to do. I'm going to run out of episodes before I run out of content. Stay spooky. Stay positive. Stay safe. I'll see you next Friday.